Dear friends, this Shabbat, Bereshit, is the first portion of the Torah. We're beginning the cycle of reading the Torah again. We have just come from Simchat Torah when we finished reading the 5 books, and immediately we restart with Bereshit. And Bereshit really is the story of the beginning of the world, from concept to actual creation. God created the world in 7 days, 6 days of active creation. Shabbat is a part of creation, but it's not active, it's on a much deeper level. That's why we rest on Shabbat, and we do not do any type of creative work. But it's interesting, in Bereshit we find something very fascinating. What was the difference between when Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, and then when they sinned and they were expelled from the Garden of Eden? What changed? And we know that a lot changed. All of a sudden we have to work hard to make a living. Women have to go through 9 months of pregnancy and a very difficult childbirth, and many other things that were a result of this sin. That many things changed. But there's one very fascinating thing that the Torah points out that changed, which I think is very important for us to recognize. That before the sin, Adam and Eve, they were walking around in the Garden of Eden naked, but they weren't conscious of their nakedness. It did not automatically bring them to wrong desires or awaken within them temptations that will pull them away from what they're supposed to do and from God himself. But once they sinned, immediately they felt self-conscious. And all of a sudden their nakedness stood out, and they were hiding and trying to cover it. And this has been the story of mankind since, is that through sin, where the good and bad became all mixed together, the way the world is that we live in is that we have this ego and self-consciousness of who we are. And our basic needs, which initially were supposed to be things that we take care of because we need them. An animal eats when it's hungry. An animal doesn't say, I'm bored, let me eat. An animal eats based on what their need is. An animal does their other activities for survival when the need arises, but not human beings. We have temptations for food, not because food is needed to keep ourselves alive, because we like food for food itself. And that's the reason why we many times eat food that's bad for us, because the temptation comes from our eyes and our imagination and our evil inclination and our worldly soul that's pushing us to like it instead of saying, what do I need? And when people spend lots of money and they go through a lifetime trying to get it right, to eat what you need, and that's only one example of what we go through in life. So it's the self-consciousness of who we are, and all of a sudden the desires and temptations for things that are not necessarily good for us as well, as opposed to before the sin of the tree of knowledge. It was clear to Adam and Eve what they had to do, and that's what they did. They did nothing that they were not supposed to do. So when we look at ourselves, we're starting a new year, we finished the holidays, and we want to make this year better for us. We want to become better people. Everyone wants to be better. We all know we're not perfect. We want to be a little bit better. We want to be a better person. We want to be more in control of our desires and temptations, the direction, the guide we guide our life with. We want to be more committed to what God wants. We want to be a good Jew, the right type of person, mother, father, son, daughter, grandson, granddaughter, sibling, boss, employer, employee, colleague. We always want to be better. The first thing we should work on ourselves is to recognize that this consciousness and the shame that we have, that Adam and Eve had about their nakedness, creeps into every part of our life, that we can see beyond our own little interests and desires for something that's greater than us, something that's more meaningful, something that really is in sync with who I am. So that's what we have to work on a little bit as we go into our lives, back to our daily lives. No more days off of work. Like this year we had 7 days off of work. Try to spend a little time through the study of Torah or prayer. Prayer is really the great antidote to make ourselves more aware of what's right and wrong, to feel the energy, the spirit of God within ourselves, the truth of Torah, because that will bring us more to feel what life was like in the Garden of Eden before we had all these temptations which took over ourselves. So we are all destined for greatness, and we can all overcome any temptation or desire, but it's going to take effort. Then it was easy. It was. Now it takes a lot more effort. So let's make that little bit of effort. So Bereshit, the beginning that God made, and His vision, we will help make it happen now by bringing back a world where the truth, our purpose, and therefore the meanings of life and the satisfaction and happiness of life will be complete and wholesome. So this is the beginning, my friends. Let's start the journey that this year will be the best year for all of us. I want to wish you Shabbat Shalom. May God bless you in all your work. We love you all. Candlelighting time in Montreal, 6:15 p.m.